Imagine you're trying to learn like a completely new language.
Right.
You open your textbook, expecting those standard conjugation tables and polite greetings. But instead, the curriculum tells you that the absolute best way to memorize your next vocabulary word is to drink a bowl of gray fermented milk.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, milk that smells distinctly like a pair of old, unwashed socks.
I mean, that sounds more like a hazing ritual than a real pedagogical strategy.
Totally.
But the truth is, sensory shock might actually be the most effective memory tool we have.
And that's exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are unpacking a really fascinating script today for an English learning show.
Yeah, it's called Taste China, Learn English.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source script actually starts with, "Welcome to Taste China, Learn English,"
Correct.
and then just jumps right into this wild culinary tour. It's definitely not your standard, sterile classroom language guide.
Not at all.
The entire premise is built on the idea that the traditional street snacks of Beijing hold the key to teaching vocabulary. And it's aimed at lower intermediate English learners, so the words aren't too overly complex, but the method is just brilliant.
What's fascinating here is the underlying philosophy of language acquisition. Usually we treat language like this dry utility, right?
Yeah, just memorizing definitions in a vacuum.
Exactly. But this approach proves that to truly understand the nuances of a new language, you kind of have to bypass the prefrontal cortex and go straight for the stomach.
I love that.
You aren't just reading definitions on a page, you are viscerally experiencing them.
And to do that, the material asks us to mentally step away from those pristine, multi-story tourist restaurants in downtown Beijing.
Right, we're going somewhere entirely different.
Yeah, it drops us immediately into the hutongs.
The hutongs.
Which are these narrow, almost labyrinth-like historic alleyways. They form the traditional beating heart of the city.
And stepping into the hutongs, it's a complete sensory overload. The environment itself is literally a teaching tool.
For sure. If you're walking through those narrow paths, you aren't just seeing old architecture. You're hearing cicadas buzzing at just deafening volumes in the canopy above.
Yeah, it's loud.
You're dodging older gentlemen fiercely slamming chess pieces down on small wooden tables in the shade.
It's very alive.
Very alive. But above all else, hitting you from every possible direction is this overwhelming wall of smells. Sweet, savory, pungent, and, some highly questionable aromas all fighting for your attention.
It's the raw, unfiltered reality of the culture. And the very first culinary stop this curriculum uses, it leans heavily into that unfiltered, challenging reality.
It does. It starts with breakfast.
Right, breakfast.
We really need to talk about douzier.
Oh boy, douzier.
Yeah. For anyone who hasn't encountered this, douzier is a traditional Beijing breakfast drink. It's made from fermented mung bean milk.
And the material does not sugarcoat this experience for the language learners.
Not at all. It explicitly warns that for a non-local, the first sip is going to be an absolute shock to the system.
It is a total trial by fire. The taste is famously described by outsiders as a mix between sour soup and, like you mentioned earlier, old socks.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because tying a vocabulary lesson to a drink that tastes like old socks is a pretty bold move.
It really is.
We all know famously polarizing foods, right?
Yeah.
Like an intense, veiny blue cheese that smells like a damp cellar.
Yeah, or even a shot of pure, unadulterated espresso for a kid trying it for the very first time.
Exactly. They are incredibly harsh on the palate. But how does a biological warning signal, which is what a sour, funky smell actually is, how does that become what Beijing locals genuinely refer to as the comforting taste of home?
Well, it comes down to the biology of fermentation. And also how our brains process risk versus reward.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So when you smell something intensely sour or funky like douzier, your primal survival instinct flares up.
Because it smells bad.
Right. Your brain evolved to associate those smells with food that has spoiled. It sends this bright red warning signal telling you, do not consume this.
It's just a physiological defense mechanism.
Precisely. But fermentation is controlled decay. The proteins and sugars in those mung beans, they've broken down into incredibly complex aromatic compounds.
I see.
So when you push past that initial biological warning and actually drink it, your brain eventually realizes you aren't being poisoned.
Right, you survive the sip.
Exactly, you survive. And the reward center registers this massive depth of complex, savory, sour flavor. It creates an enormous dopamine hit because you survived the threat and found nourishment.
That's wild.
It is. And this psychological journey is the exact mechanism the curriculum uses to teach its first major vocabulary phrase.
Which is acquired taste.
An acquired taste, a thing that you initially dislike, but, learn to appreciate over time.
Think about the cognitive science of memory retention here. If an English learner just reads the definition of acquired taste on a standard flashcard,
it might stay in their short-term memory for, a day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you tie that phrase to the visceral bodily shock of drinking sour mung bean milk,
Yeah.
and then the slow realization of its complex flavor profile over multiple mornings, that memory is seared into their neural pathways forever.
The physical shock literally cements the abstraction of the words.
That makes so much sense. You are anchoring the language in biological reality.
Yeah.
But nobody just stands in an alleyway drinking sour duzir entirely on its own, right?
No, definitely not. It requires a specific vehicle.
Right, and that introduces a crucial textural element to the lesson, the jiaquan.
The jiaquan is, it's a deep-fried golden ring of dough.
Yeah. You take this incredibly oily, crispy ring,
Right.
and you dip it directly into the sour fermented milk. And this physical action is used to introduce the next vocabulary word, which is brittle.
Defined as hard, but liable to break or shatter easily.
I'm really curious about that specific word choice.
Yeah.
Why teach the word brittle? Why not just use crunchy or crispy? What's the psychological difference for someone trying to grasp the English language here?
Well, think about the nuance. Crunchy implies a sturdiness, like a carrot is crunchy.
Oh, true.
But brittle implies a very specific, delicate fragility. If you squeeze a jiaquan too hard in your hand, it doesn't just snap in half. It shatters into 100 tiny shards.
Wow, okay.
And this raises a fascinating point about culinary design and vocabulary. Why pair a brittle, shattering object with a sour liquid soup?
It has to be about the contrast, Strap.
It's entirely about contrast. When you dip that brittle, deep-fried jiaquan into the duzir, the fragile structure of the dough absorbs just a fraction of the liquid.
Okay.
Suddenly, the rich, heavy oil of the dough is cut by the extreme fermented sourness of the soup. The soup tames the oil, and the shattering dough grounds the aggressive sourness.
It's a complete textural and flavor synthesis. And by isolating those elements like the acquired taste of the sourness and the brittle fragility of the dough, the language learner isn't just memorizing random adjectives.
No, they're deconstructing the mechanics of a culture's comfort food.
Which perfectly sets up the next evolution in this linguistic journey. We've moved from the biological shock of flavor to the structural feeling of comfort.
Right. Let's transition from that intense flavor biology into something rooted entirely in physical sensation.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So imagine you are a learner or a traveler, and you've spent, say, 6 hours walking the massive, sprawling stone courtyards of the Forbidden City.
You are physically depleted.
Completely exhausted. You don't need a challenging flavor at that point. You need grounding.
You need zhajiangmian.
Yes. Fried sauce noodles. This is arguably the most foundational comfort dish in the city's culinary repertoire.
The curriculum dives into the mechanics of the dish. It states that its absolute soul is huangjiang, which is a traditional fermented soybean paste.
And the preparation of that paste is really where the magic happens. You don't sous it raw.
Right.
You take that huangjiang and you cook it down slowly with diced pork.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, through the cooking process, the fats render out, the sugars caramelize, and it transforms into this incredibly dark, glossy, intensely salty and heavy sauce.
It is an absolute sledgehammer of flavor.
It really is.
But here's where I want to push back a little on the English translation provided in the script, because I think it reveals a massive cultural blind spot if we aren't careful.
Okay, what do you mean?
So the curriculum introduces the English word toppings, translating the Chinese term Myanmar, to describe the rest of the ingredients in the bowl.
Right, the shredded cucumber, the crisp radish, the bean sprouts, the fresh soybeans.
Yes. But when someone from a Western culinary background hears the English word toppings, it implies something purely optional.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
It implies an afterthought. Like, I think of a light dusting of Parmesan cheese on a pizza or colorful sprinkles on a scoop of ice cream.
Yeah, if you remove the sprinkles, the underlying ice cream is structurally identical.
Exactly. It's just decorative.
Marginal to the actual dish.
Right. But in Zhejiangmian, these so-called toppings are absolutely not optional. They are the structural load bearers of the meal.
Without them, the dish doesn't work.
Not at all. If you were to just eat a bowl of thick wheat noodles coated entirely in that dark, glossy, intensely salty pork fat paste, it would be overwhelmingly rich.
You tap out after 3 bites.
You'd have to. You actively require that massive handful of shredded cucumber and crunchy radish to inject water, freshness, and snap into the bowl.
And you vigorously mix it all together so every single bite has the heavy pork and the sharp, watery vegetable. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this structural interplay is exactly what allows the curriculum to teach its most conceptual, feeling-based word yet.
Which is hearty.
Hearty. It's such an evocative word. It doesn't just mean big.
No, it doesn't. And this is where the concept of embodied cognition comes in.
Embodied cognition.
Yeah. It's the theory that we don't just learn abstract concepts with our brains. Our physical, bodily states fundamentally shape our understanding of language.
So a hearty meal is defined as one that is large, warm, and provides a deep sense of satisfaction.
You feel it in your chest.
You literally feel it in your nervous system.
Yeah.
By mechanically balancing the extremes of the rich, fatty pork paste with the water-rich crunch of the fresh vegetables, all bound together by dense carbohydrates, Zhejiangmian triggers a parasympathetic response in your body.
It calms you down.
Exactly. Your body warms up, your stomach feels functionally comfortably heavy.
Yeah.
So when the curriculum teaches the word hearty through the lens of this specific noodle dish, it is teaching the learner to associate the English word with that exact heavy, warm physiological state.
It moves the vocabulary completely out of the dictionary and into the body.
Right?
You understand the word hearty because you are currently sitting at a low table, exhausted, experiencing that exact warmth spreading outward from your stomach.
That's right. It's taking abstract language and making it a physical reality.
So we've navigated the biological challenge of an acquired taste.
Yep.
We've explored the embodied cognition of a hearty meal. Now we have to move to the final stage of this language progression.
Which is visual storytelling and pure abstraction.
We need dessert.
We always need dessert. And the curriculum saves its most fascinating linguistic puzzle for the end.
It introduces a pastry called LV de Goan.
Which sounds amazing.
The dish itself sounds relatively straightforward. It's a steamed, glutinous rice roll filled with a sweet red bean paste.
The texture is described as highly elastic, bouncing back when you bite into it.
Right.
And it has a sweetness that is very subtle, relying on the natural earthiness of the red bean rather than, just pure refined sugar.
But here's where it gets really interesting. I want to talk about the name.
The name is fantastic.
Because if you translate LV de Goan directly into English, you get the rolling donkey.
The rolling donkey. I mean, it sounds like a boisterous tavern from a medieval fantasy novel. Not a delicate, subtly sweet pastry.
Right. When I first read that, I was genuinely baffled. Why on earth would you name an elastic, refined rice pastry after a farm animal?
Well, it all comes down to the final crucial step in the preparation.
Okay.
Once you have this soft, sticky rice roll filled with the dark bean paste, you take the entire thing and you roll it vigorously in a thick bed of toasted soybean flour.
Ah, I see.
The dry flour clings to the sticky exterior, coating it completely in this pale yellow powder.
And the visual imagery of that action.
The visual of that sticky roll kicking up the yellow flour perfectly mimics an everyday historical scene from the old hutongs.
Wow.
It looks exactly like a beast of burden, a donkey that has thrown itself onto the ground and is rolling around, kicking up clouds of dry, yellow Beijing dust to scratch its back.
That is an absolutely staggering piece of cultural naming.
Isn't it?
And it serves as the perfect delivery mechanism for the curriculum's final, highest level vocabulary word, which is vivid.
Vivid, defined as producing powerful feelings or strong, clear images in the mind.
Just think about the alternative here. The creators of this dish hundreds of years ago could have easily called it like soybean flour rice roll.
Yeah, that would be factually accurate.
It would be highly descriptive, and it would be entirely depressingly forgettable.
Exact.
Instead, they took a mundane observation of street life, a dusty farm animal seeking relief on a dirt road, and they superimposed that imagery onto a dessert.
It's a masterclass in abstraction. It transforms a simple transaction of calories into a vivid piece of cultural storytelling.
It forces your brain to paint a picture before the food even hits the table. Just by speaking the name of the dish, you can see the puff of yellow dust in your mind's eye. You can practically hear the donkey.
And if you are an English learner, tying the concept of the word vivid to the sheer absurdity and hypervisual nature of a pastry named after a dusty donkey rolling in the dirt. I mean, you have completely bypassed rote memorization.
Cultural.
The word vivid is now permanently linked to a highly specific, highly imaginative cultural joke. You own that word now.
You really do. So what does this actually mean for you, the person listening to this right now? We've walked through the chaotic alleys of the hutongs, we've broken down the biology of smells, and we've tasted our way through the mechanics of vocabulary.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. But I want to turn the lens back on you. Think about the landscape of your own local food. Think about the sensory environment of the place you grew up.
Because every single culture, every region has its own version of this curriculum hiding in plain sight.
Absolutely. What are the acquired tastes of your hometown? What is that specific, challenging flavor? Maybe a pungently fermented fish, a shockingly bitter root, or like a sharp, acidic condiment that triggers an outsider's survival instinct but instantly floods your brain with the dopamine of home.
That's a great question.
And what are the structural, hearty dishes that physically warm your nervous system when the world feels too cold and exhausting? What local desserts have names so vivid and strange that they force you to tell a story every time you introduce them to a friend?
When we look back at the progression we just took, from the biological shock of an acquired taste to the physical shattering of a brittle texture,
Right.
to the heavy embodied comfort of a hearty meal, and finally the storytelling abstraction of a vivid name, we see that language isn't just a tool for describing the world.
No, it's more than that.
Language is the residue of human experience.
It's the byproduct of living in a place.
Exactly. And this leaves us with a really critical question about the future of how we communicate. As globalization continues to accelerate, we are standardizing our diets.
You really are.
We are replacing these highly specific, deeply funky, hyperlocal street foods with generic, universally palatable fast food. And if we flatten our diets to remove all the acquired tastes and vivid oddities, it makes you wonder, are we also flattening our language?
Oh, wow. That is a heavy thought. If we lose the complex, challenging foods of our hometowns, do we also lose the cognitive anchors for the very words that make our cultures unique?
It's highly possible. When we sanitize the menu, we might be sanitizing the dictionary right along with it.
That is a phenomenal point to end on. True fluency isn't about knowing the textbook translation of a word. It's about sharing the messy sensory memory behind it.
So true.
So the next time you set out to truly understand a new culture or learn a new language, maybe skip the glossary. Go find the most challenging, vividly named thing on the street corner and just start eating. Until next time, keep exploring.